Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ella Johnson Show. It's time for Real Talk TV, where we can be on TV and talk real. Listen, I am so excited on this inauguration day to be here with you guys. Listen, I want to thank you. If you are watching from Facebook, I want you to do me a favor right now. I want you to just share the broadcast because you don't want anyone else to miss out on this. And then if you're watching from YouTube, I'd love for you just to subscribe. Now, even if you're on Facebook, I still need you to go over to YouTube and subscribe to the Ella Johnson Show. If you're watching from the Ella Johnson Show, just like my page. Well, listen, welcome to you guys. I have a wonderful show tonight. Listen, you remember when I said to you that there will come a time, you know how when people come to you and they say, how's everything going today? And it can be so tough sometimes that you just look at them and say, girl, you just don't know. So I decided that it was just appropriate to come up with a series of those you just don't know stories of people telling their true life story on this broadcast. Well, tonight I have Jesse Stevenson, and he is joining me tonight. Hello there.
Hey, Miss Ella Johnson, how are you?
I am wonderful. Let me tell everybody about this awesome, wonderful man that we have here. He's a native of Orlando, and he now lives in New York with his family, but he's an accomplished and award-winning vocalist, songwriter, and producer. He has traveled the world doing what he loves. Who wouldn't want to do that? And in 2009, he founded the Freedom Dominion Christian Church over in Richmond, Virginia. 2016, he released a CD titled The Power of Prayer. Now, I am excited, and you will be too, but I am excited to have this anointed, powerful, conscious man of God on the Ella Johnson Show. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Miss Ella. It's certainly great being here with you on tonight. Finally.
I know, right? We've been trying to do this for the longest.
But
I understand you are a busy man.
Crazy year and so much. And I'm sure there's a lot that we'll be able to cover. I don't want to jump the gun, but man, I'm telling you, you just don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know what it took for us to get here. Nevertheless, I am glad to be here with you tonight.
Well, let me ask you a question. Did you watch the inauguration today? I know you're excited about that. I know everyone watching is.
Listen, let me tell you, there was a couple of moments I was on the edge of my seat. There were a couple of moments I kind of quickened a few times. The young people, they call it the whoa.
Okay.
They've been doing the whoa for a long time. They just call it shondo.
Right.
And so it was a very powerful moment and certainly an unveiling in history. And I'm telling you, I along with so many more lived to be able to witness history in the making. You're talking a now sitting president that was a part of two historical presidencies. One where he served as a vice president of the first African-American president in chief. And then, of course, now this present election. And so I am really just praying for them and their cabinet and the success. And this is
absolutely
really time. Then, of course, we got Kamala Harris, who's the first of many things for this election and presidency. And so we salute each and every one of you all that have voted, and of course, to see women excel in this day and age is remarkable for me. So
it took all of us. It really, really did. It took everybody. What was your favorite part?
Honestly, and I might get in trouble for saying this, but
not on this show. You don't get in trouble. Who's going to check you?
22-year-old poet, the young lady.
Oh, she was incredible.
She was incredible. B flat and let's ride out, because man, it was just
that.
And and even me as a singer, I'm sure that many people's timelines were flooded with criticism, from the musical selections and the musical guests, who would think that they would have had Lady Gaga sing the national anthem? But for me, it might not have been ideal for who we wanted for such a presidency, but she was just right. It was just the right
I
fit.
thought it was sweet. I thought she did well. Jennifer Lopez, everything about the inauguration was professional. And I know that
Absolutely.
this country, this nation took a sigh of relief today. I am excited. But you're here tonight because we're going to talk about your story. This is You Just Don't Know What I've Been Through, the Jesse Stevenson story. And I think after tonight, at the end of this broadcast, people will realize that just because it looks easy doesn't mean it was, It doesn't mean it was. So take us back. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, so let's see here. I am 43 years old. I currently am married to my wife, Lakeisha Stevenson. I almost said her whole government name, but I probably
Don't do that.
across the house at me. But
Yeah.
the father of.
But hello to you. Hi, Lakeisha. How are you?
She's watching.
Yes.
And so I'm the father of four, grandfather of two, and I have 26 years in preaching ministry. I have 36 years in music ministry, and I started at a very young age. Grew up in a house with a mama that sang, and my stepmother sang, my dad sang. And so, siblings, that we were all made to sing. And so, it kind of became this thing growing up around church culture, stark Pentecostalism, and with some ties to apostolic church, which is even more tight and intense. And so I've seen a lot. I've done a lot of work between singing. I sing opera. Most people don't know. I sing opera music. I sing jazz, Broadway, gospel. Everything except for rock music. If it can be sung, I can sing it.
I heard that. So you know how we used to say in the country, we didn't say, "Can you sing?" We would say, "Oh, that brother can sing." Now, are you gonna sing for us tonight? I want to hear a little. Give me a little something.
Hey, you know what? I want to do this right quick. And I'm gonna see if I can get this right. So, as we used to say when I was growing up, charge it to my head and not my heart. You don't know what I've been through. Let me share my story with you. All of the things that He's brought me through, my stormy days and my rainy days. You don't know all the tears that I've cried, the things I've kept bottled up inside, trying to be strong, waiting on God and holding on. You don't know what I've had to endure, and wondering why I'm so sure. 'Cause my Father, He never lets me down. He's always around, even when I can't see it. Oh, thank you, Jesus. You don't know how many times I prayed over and over and over, but the situation didn't change. Never change, but just when I found it was the end, you came and you did it again. Oh, you just don't know.
Yes.
Oh, you don't know, no, you don't know. Oh, you don't know.
Woo.
You don't know.
Yes. Now that's how you kick off the Ella Johnson show. That's what I'm talking about. Listen, guys, for those of you that just tuned in, we are presenting another episode of the You Just Don't Know series. And Jesse Stevenson just sang the song for us. You said you did that. I'm
Thank
telling you, listen, if you don't know the words to the song, then just you know how the old folks used to say, just moan. When you don't know what to say,
you.
just moan. God will figure he knows what's in your heart. But
Yeah.
listen, you just got me. That just totally messed me up. You know, that's my song right there. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome, awesome. Listen, guys, if you're just tuning into the broadcast, I want you to, if you have a question for either myself or Jesse, please put it in the comments, and we can. I'm periodically checking the comments here, and we can answer those questions for you. But I want you to take us back to the moment. You know, we always have that turning point in our life where things just start going kind of a little jacked up. What point was that for you? Where was that?
Let me tell you, and I always try to be transparent as a pastor and a leader. I try to just keep it, my kids,
100?
they
Yeah.
just keep it 100.
Oh, right.
I got married, my first marriage. I was 18 years old, straight out of high school. I didn't really have a great examples of good, steady, secure marriages, and so things with my marriage as a kid just kind of really went downhill. We didn't know. We made a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad decisions, and so serving in ministry, all of those things really started to have an effect on what I was doing and what I was called to. And so, you talk about going and serving at a church with thousands of members. You're the youngest preacher on staff at a church out of 28 elders, evangelists, and ministers. I have a lot of face time in ministry as one of the MD, and then also a worship leader there and a part of the leadership of the music ministry. And then you go from all of that to now you have to be silenced and sat down in this church, and so it really, Ella, started to take a toll because I then started to really question, was I really called to this? Would God really use me?
Now, why were you silenced? Why did you feel like
Well,
you were silenced?
yeah, it was a
100.
relationship thing. Um,
Okay.
we were having some issues in the marriage, and we were off and on separated. And
Okay.
at the time, I got involved with somebody else, and it got out. And
Well,
so,
it is what it is. What's done in the dark comes to light. But guess what? That didn't make you uh, someone horrible just because you made a mistake. Yours got out. A lot of people don't get out. Let's just keep
right,
it 100. Yeah.
and that's the difference between me and a lot of people. The difference between me and them is I got caught; they didn't.
Say it.
Right.
Say it.
So for me,
That was part of the plan, I think, for you, because it
you know,
led
I
you where you needed to be.
right. And I'll
Yeah.
say this. One of the crazy things was, most people, when they go through that level of humiliation or they go through that level of fall, it is often that they typically run and never look back.
Mhm.
And so for me, there was a time that I did leave, but I came back. I took some work in Atlanta, and then I ended up coming back home. And then when I came back, I was still silenced and sitting in the audience at my church. And so I sat in the audience. You're talking somebody that had probably more FaceTime at our ministry than most people on staff. Just because of because I traveled with my pastor, I served him on the road as a musician, as an executive administrator. I ran some of his booking for his. He had had a management company where he managed LaShawn Pace and some different artists, and so I wrote their contracts and worked the business And so all of these things. And so you go from the guy that's invited to sit in the green room to now being the guy that's,
in the audience.
cleaning, vacuuming the floor and, cleaning
So
bathrooms.
how did you get back?
Well, let me tell you what I did. I kept coming back to the same church.
Okay.
Coming back. I didn't get mad at the praise team because it wasn't me up there singing. I didn't get mad at the musicians because it wasn't me up there playing. I
You didn't
cheered.
leave the church like most people
Oh,
do.
I stayed.
Right.
I didn't go to this place where, I was angry with them and would sit on them. And there were nights, man, in worship where they were horrible. But man, I was the biggest cheerleader because Ella, for me, one of the things that I had always taken with me, and even to this very day, I live by it, and my wife can attest to this, is that I have always, any platform opportunity that I've gotten, Ella, I always served my way into that place. I didn't brown
That's
nose.
important. That's important.
I served. So when I went from being the guy not with the microphone in my hand and not in front of the church, the pastors needed some ushers at the front door for a special event, and I went and stood at the door and ushered. We stayed after and cleaned the windows and cleaned the bathrooms and vacuumed the floors. And I remember this one particular time we kept Vicky Winans at the church, and at the end of the service, I said I went from being the guy one of the guys in the green room seated at the table with all of this great people to now, serving these people. And so I remember serving dinner to all of these people in this room. And I was really humiliated. I was shamed. I was broken.
Where did that come from, though? That shame. Where is that something learned, or where did that come from? Because a lot of people, I'm very glad that we're talking about this, because a lot of people don't return after a mistake because you just said that shame. Where did
Yeah,
that come from?
one of the things that, and this is something that I live by, I believe that failure is only failure when you don't learn the lesson from a fall.
Okay.
And so I learned the lesson from the fall. I knew that there was nothing more important to me than giving God me. And so whether it was pre fall or whether it was post fall, at the end of the day, for me, I knew that God, that I belonged to Him. Shame,
Right.
shame though came more so from the idea that, man, I lost all of this,
Yeah.
and I'm like, everybody knew, a lot of the people in the room, they knew, man, why you ain't sitting at the table? So for me, it was more so the shame was me um, comparing myself in the eyes of somebody else in my own mind, if that makes sense.
It
And
does
so,
make sense. Yeah.
and so what happened, Ella, is I just kept coming back to church. I'm talking, I was in church. Let me tell you what this one time, since we're talking about you just don't know. I was in service one night. It was a Thursday night. And pastor's preaching is by far one of the most, he's a prolific preacher, period, but he's one of my favorite teachers. He was teaching real good this Thursday night. And I stood up to witness, just to, in amazement at what he was saying, I got it. And I just happened to glance down and I saw two members in church. They were taking notes about me. And the one wrote a note to the other and said, "Why is he here?" And the one that she wrote the note to, she replied and said, "He who?" And she said, "Him standing behind us." And I got so discouraged that I grabbed my keys and my Bible and I left church. I left. I
I,
left
you
church.
know, and I'm going to be honest with you, since we're being 100 and this is real talk, that happens so often in church, that people get so discouraged that we have put people on such a high pedestal. This whole, if you have to be a certain way just to be able to be in the congregation or serve in the church, that you run all the sinners away. And it's
Right.
like, isn't this a place where you're supposed, it's like a hospital. right? This is where people who have issues come. If
Yeah.
everybody has figured it out, we don't need God, you know? So I'm glad you shared that you were real and that you left because you were discouraged. Because there are people watching this broadcast that we don't want you to get discouraged just because of what people's opinions of you are.
You know what the
Yeah.
problem, the harder part about that scenario was when I left and went around the corner to another church, and the Holy Ghost said to me, "Go back."
Oh, he
I
would have had
told
to send me a text, maybe. I'd have been like, Lord, was that you? You sure?
he said, Ella, no lie. He said, "Go back." He said, and when you go back,
Ooh,
he said, sit in the same seat.
that's right.
And I was
Awesome.
so broken over that. I was like,
Right.
oh man, this is crazy. And so when that happened, I went back and Ella, you know what? I kept serving. I kept
That's
serving.
beautiful.
I kept serving. I had a job open up in Atlanta for me at a church that I had served at for a little bit during that time. Over that time, I didn't want to go to church. I didn't want to preach. I didn't want to pray. I didn't want to play. I didn't want to do any of those things. And it got to the point to where I remember sitting in my brother's apartment and the walls started talking to me. I became chronically depressed. I became
Wow.
suicidal.
Oh,
And only way that I knew to get through that was to get in the presence of God. And I remember telling somebody one day, God just stopped talking to me. And when I got alone off of that call, the Lord said, I didn't stop talking to you. You stopped listening.
wow.
And so beyond that, once I got through that, um, you know, in the same church, 2 years later, I was elevated back up. But during that time of not really playing for anybody, I spent time playing at home, playing before the Lord, worshiping, singing, writing music, and just developing my craft. And so the Sunday that he put me back up, man, I was like, y'all finna get all of these years of not having me here unloaded on
That's
y'all
right. That's
in a
right.
minute.
Let's
And
go
so,
back though. I want to
yeah,
go back to something because you said something very profound when you talked about you were suicidal. And I don't want to gloss over that because there's so many people that are watching this broadcast who have been there.
yeah,
That is the breaking point for so many people because some people succumb to those urges and they do commit suicide because they can't handle it. All the pressure from trying to be someone that people want them to be. Um, that moment when you felt suicidal, what were you were you hearing? Were you hearing voices? Were you hearing a different spirit around you?
I,
Like what
Ella,
was there?
you hear people say, man, if walls could talk,
Talk. Yeah.
the walls I'm in my brother's apartment. He's at work during the day. He was, going to college and working several jobs. And so I was kind of in his apartment by myself. And so when the TV, it got to the point to where, the walls almost started talking louder than the TV. Um, I didn't
Wow.
I didn't really have anybody to talk to. I didn't really have anybody that I felt comfortable to be able to open up to, which is another issue with people in church.
I was
Let-
just going to ask you that. Why is it that here you were serving and doing what you were doing in church, which is what we always tell people to do, go to church, go to church. And then as soon as something happens in their life, they feel all of a sudden that they don't have anywhere to go. That's the kind of stuff the world offers. So, what benefit am I going to be in church if you're going to treat me the same way the world does?
Right. You know what, Ella? And I'll tell you this, it becomes challenging because the places where I felt like I should have been able to get counsel, um, I didn't get counsel. I traveled with all of these pastors and bishops from the age of 8, playing for churches as a kid. And I didn't really have anybody that I could just pick up the phone and go to.
How
Um,
hard was that though? When you were a kid in the music industry, how hard was that?
you know
Because
what?
I'm sure you had challenges.
It really wasn't that hard for me because I had a mom, that,
Right.
she really vetted people that she allowed me to go out with. She wanted to make sure that I wasn't just going out with people that was going to introduce me to certain things. She knew that the individuals that she was releasing me out to, were individuals who would cover me as a kid, cover me as a young man. And so even to the point to where, Ella, there was a time, and I'm telling you, you getting all of it tonight. There was a time early on, as is for many people, especially young men that grow up around church, they often develop a type of this effeminate behavior. And a lot of that comes because for us growing up, we had more women in church than we did men.
Right.
And so it's easy, to kind of wave your hand the way a woman waves a hand, because that's the example that you have. And I remember one day I was in church and I went to wave my hand, and I waved my hand like this. I can't know if you can't see me, but I waved my hand. Let me see. I waved
Oh my goodness. I see you. I know you got some
in
criticism for
service,
that.
and I tell you, my godmother, who is now an apostle in the Lord's church, she said, "Son Jesse," she said, "I want you to come here." And she pulled me aside and she called several manly men in the church. And she said, "I want y'all to show son Jesse how he's supposed to smile, how a young man is supposed to smile. And I want y'all to show Jesse how a young man is supposed to clap. And I want y'all to show Jesse, how a young man should wave his hand." Because she understood that the majority of the people that was on our team were women. And so we had very few men on the team. And so she had to expose me to that. And so I caught that very early on during that time. And so my mom trusted her, which, was one of the individuals that I traveled with for a long time, that really taught me a lot about music ministry and atmosphere and prophetic worship, which I have churches and leaders in ministry call me to activate their churches in prophetic worship quite a bit. But she taught me that thing. But she also taught me some practical things as well, right? No one teacher can teach us all things. And so even, with that, it was pretty okay. It started to get a little more challenging the older I got, because then people started to see how gifted I was, how anointed I was, and then they wanted to take advantage of that. And so because I was loyal more times than others to a fault, they started to take advantage of that. And
Right.
so, so for me, that was a challenge. And so now, because I was committed, to a church, I wasn't a church hopper. When the Lord told me this is where you're going to be, he was specific as to how long I would be at a particular ministry, at a particular church, blah, 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 right? But when I got to this particular church, even in a fall, I was still loyal, not just to the church.
Wow.
I was loyal to the call of God, because that church was where God told me he would plant me until he released me.
I'm so glad you said that, because, we have this saying that people deal with church hurt, which I don't understand that, because there's no hurt like world hurt.
Right.
But nonetheless, people talk about church hurt, and what you went through is what would be considered church hurt. But you remain focused on what you were there for and not the people. That is very important if you are watching this broadcast, because some of you are walking away from your call and your purpose because you've run across someone that may not like the way you do it, may not like the way you talk, may not like the way you dress. If God has given that to you, he's going to give you what you need to go through it and to be able to do it. And for you, you were gifted. God gave you that gift. Now, the enemy obviously was trying to get you to abandon your call, but you didn't. You stayed true to it, and you stayed there and served.
You know
That's
what?
good.
I'll say this, because I always tell people, the enemies fight against each and every one of us. Um, we take it personal, but the enemy's fight against all of us is really about a fight that he is having with God. And so if he can use God's divine creation and make us fall, it's always in an effort to discredit what God said. So let me give you a case in point. In my case, the Bible says, now unto him who is able to keep you from falling and to present you faultless, right? Um, when I fell, the enemy, because he is the accuser of the brethren, and I have to watch it when I start talking about Bible because I'm a preacher by nature
It's
and
in,
calling.
it's
So
all
I start
good.
real preachy.
Yeah.
But with the enemy by nature, what he does is, in an effort to discredit the infallible word of God as it relates to us, what he does is he then goes back to God and said, your word perfect, but I thought you said that you were able to keep him from falling.
All right now.
Because he's the accuser of the brethren. And so for us, it's the enemy's plan to use us in an effort, even our failures, our struggles. Some people self-destruct, commit suicide, they're on drugs, whatever those things may be. The enemy will often try to take advantage of those vulnerable moments or those moments of falling, and then go back to God and say, man, you ain't all you say that, because if it was, then this wouldn't happen to them. But then God comes back and says, my grace is sufficient for them.
Yes.
Right? And
Now
so, and even in their weakness, I am made strong. And so I experienced the strength of God, from that dynamic that, hey, to be able to rebound and bounce back. And I had people who judged me. They ended up in situations of their own. And some of them left the church altogether. Some left the city, some of them ended up pregnant. And in some cases, scenarios far worse than mine. And then there were others that judged me with compassion and then
right.
watched me come back and still be faithful to the house of God. Because my service to God wasn't predicated on whether or not I was on the stage. It wasn't predicated on whether or not I had a microphone. It wasn't predicated on whether or not I was behind the keyboard or preaching or prophesying. It was predicated on the fact that I know that I love Jesus. Despite my mistakes, despite my failures and my stuff, I love Jesus more than I love the stage, the platform, the calling, the title, the collars, the colors, and the chords. All of those things. I love him more and more enough to know that even when I fail, I can't leave him because he never left me.
I'm so glad you said that, because a lot of times you get people that say, and I think it was similar to what happened to Job, that was something that was going on between God and the enemy with this whole thing with Job, because he was like, well, he has everything. Of course, he'll serve you. You've given him everything he wants, but I guarantee you he won't if I take it away from you. And that is what happens, that people think that you give God that praise because you're living large. But I know for me, for example, I give him praise even when I am not where I want to be. And that's how his witness is made perfect, being a witness for him, because you went through the test and you passed it. It's not a testimony until you've survived the test. So I think that's awesome. But let me ask you a question, because there are a lot of people that didn't keep doing what you were doing. They kept messing up because they felt that their chances were slim. I wanted to talk to those people. I want you to talk to those people and tell them how to get out of that state of mind.
You know what? I believe that if you're the person that continues to continue to engage into that behavior, there are moments where you have to be set down and be able to process. But I'll take this a step further. Individuals who continue in that behavior, their issue is far bigger than their action. I'll say it again. Their issue is far bigger than their action. There is something there that stems far back further than the current scenario that they're in. And so if they are willing to sit down, they should sit down with somebody that can help them navigate the point of entry. There are some people that get into that kind of thing because, men in the culture of their family have said, man, that this is what makes you a man. When you got multiple women, or when you step out on your wife, or when you do this, or when you do that. whatever. It's ideologies like these, contrary to popular belief, that men are taught all the time. Oh man, oh, God ain't gonna get mad over that. But the truth of the matter is there's some people that do it because they were abused sexually, physically. They get into a place of depression, they develop soul ties, and so they don't realize that they take on this spirit without being able to go back and deal with the point of entry. That's the thing. My wife always tells me that Jesus was a life coach because he asked clarifying questions. And so when I see that and hear that, you need somebody in your life that's going to be able to ask you some clarifying questions, that's going to be able to take you to the place where your actions are driven by whatever this point of pain that started in your life. And you don't have to continue in error, and you don't have to continue in this type of behavior. Man, you really can be free, and you can live life full in God. You understand? And so whoever you are, if you're watching, you may say, man, I might as well just keep doing this. Let me, Ella, I even had it to where, there were some people I know who were accused of crazy scenarios, whether it's infidelity or adultery or fornication, and they by far weren't fornicating. And I've heard some of them say, I started fornicating because I had been accused of it so much. I just said, I'm gonna give the jokers something to talk about since they want to talk,
Oh, wow.
And it's unfortunate that, I know people will say, oh, well, you don't have to succumb to people's thing. But listen, sometimes, man, you don't have to say those kinds of things. And a lot of times people will say those kinds of things because the truth of the matter is, and this is what something, this is, now we said we was going to keep 100. So I'm going to give you 100.
Absolutely.
This is the kind of thing where I even had somebody say to me, man, some of the people in the church mad at you because it wasn't them. Wait, what? I'm sorry, you said what? Yeah, that's why some of them treating you funny, because it wasn't them. And sometimes people accuse you and they be mad and they point out your stuff because the truth of the matter is for them, if it were them, it might be different. It might not. But the reality is you gotta just, if we can't come to church
and now
be able to be healed, man, close your doors. If we can't come to church, and if all we have to do today is jump and shout and dance, listen, it's more than just jumping and shouting and dancing. You have to understand that there are some things you have to confront. The Holy Ghost has the power to heal, but the Holy Ghost is intelligent. He is a teacher. He can teach you all things. That means that he can lead you into all truth, which means that the Holy Ghost becomes now a guide for us that helps us to be able to navigate the rough terrain of our own lives or our own missteps or mishaps or mistakes,
But you know what, Jesse? People tend to try to fake it. It's like I have to pretend simply because of these standards, these high standards that the church places on people. They have to fake. They have to pretend that they're okay. They have to, knowing that they're dying inside. And I think that is the reason so many people have not learned how to have a good relationship with God, because they haven't learned how to fail at some things. It's okay to fail at some things. It's okay. God's got you. And I think that, we just like what happened to you when you were, getting started and you had this little relationship that got exposed. And you were just one of the ones that really know who you are, know whose you are, because you were able to stay in the game. But a lot of people don't. Now, what happens? What should we say to these ministers that behave this way, that lead congregations, that have people that act like this? Why don't they sit them down?
Well, you know what? I'll say, I don't want to say it that way because I might get in trouble. That's how my
No, you won't get in trouble on this show. I need you to be real.
My mama used to say every dog has his day.
Come on now. Well, my mama used to say the ditch you dig for me is the one you'll fall in. But go ahead.
Right. My mama used to say, I'm telling you, my mother used to say everything that goes around, it comes around. And so I think for us, especially leaders in ministry, we really have to develop a place of transparency. We got to be transparent. You know, I share with my church. We are as transparent as they come. You know, because we wanted truth. And so, you know, I know people quote the scripture and they say, "Oh, but the Bible says, and he shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." No, the Bible says, "And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Why
Yep.
did you draw that? Some people say, well, tomato, tomato, potato, potato. No, there's a difference between something being made and something being said. If I take an empty glass of water and set it next to a full pitcher, does that mean that I have water in the cup? No. That just means I set an empty cup next to a full pitcher. But if I take the pitcher and pour water in the cup, I have now just made an empty cup full, right? If people are set by what looks like truth, but are being told to fake it till they make it, then they don't necessarily know truth. Now, here is something else that's important, and I want to just be a little technical here for a minute. There is a Hebrew word, and it's called yada. Most people take it to the word praise. But in the Hebrew, the word yada, the root word is the word yad, which is the Hebrew word for hand, all right? Yada means to lift the hands or to extend the hand, right? But the main word translation for the word yada is to know. So what happens is when the Bible says that Abraham knew his wife Sarah, that word there in the Hebrew is the word yada, which means that I'm able to get close enough to you to put my hands on you, to enter into a place of intimacy with you without it being deemed as violation. So if one should know the truth and the truth shall make you free, then I should be able to become intimate with truth, close enough to it to put my hands on it and to pull it to myself and to be able to absorb and embrace it. But the challenge for most of us, a lot of us that grew up in church and a lot of us that's in church now, is we've been told to fake it till you make it, which now goes contrary to you understanding truth. Because
Right.
if the truth will make you free, then that means faking it till you make it says that I got to cover up the truth about my scenario and not let people know that this is where I am, what I'm really going through. But people often do that because they come to church and shout and dance, but they don't really trust that they have somebody that they can really unveil and it be healthy and their business not get all over the church and people are talking about them and gossiping about them. There comes
Right.
a time where even in faith, we have to be able to find a place of safety. I know pastors committed suicide. They didn't
Mm.
have a place of safety to go and talk. They're associated with reformations and they're associated with all of these big name preachers, but some of them didn't have a safe place. And so for me, I had to just kind of navigate it by myself. It
Wow.
rough for me. So I had to sing through it. I'm gonna do this right quick.
Come on.
I remember when I had gotten back elevated and I began to write. And I remember when you reached out to me, it was after I had posted a 60-second melody video that I do these things on TikTok. And you said, man, with a voice like that, I want to know the story behind your pain, behind your voice. There's that you didn't just get that. And I remember I started writing songs out of my pain. You know, there was a
Mm.
song that I had written 20 years ago. It goes, he never gets tired of holding me up. He never gets tired of holding me up. Even when I'm falling down, know that God can pick me up. He never gets tired. He never gets tired. He never gets tired of holding holding me up. Hold me, Jesus, hold me. Wrap your arms around me. Spread your love through me. Hold me, Jesus, hold me. And so I started writing these songs out of pain. And I remember in 2006, my pastor was preaching this message titled, um, uh, uh, I've been wounded in the house of my friends. And he quoted a scripture from Zechariah where God comes to Zechariah through his angel and he says, hey, Zechariah, what are these wounds? These wounds that are in your hand. And Zechariah says, these wounds are where I've been wounded in the house of my friends. And when he said that, something broke in me on that particular day. I'll never forget it. It was May 6, 2006. Something broke in me. And I remember asking the saxophone player at my church for a piece of receipt paper. I said, give me a piece of paper and a pencil. She gave me a little bit of receipt from a Chinese restaurant. And I penned these words. This song, it goes, when I've, sorry, excuse me, been hurt, wounded, and ashamed, when I've been torn and scarred by my friends, when I don't understand the place that I'm in, all I know is that these wounds are strings of worship for Him. All I know is that these wounds are strings of worship for Him. Wrote this song, and
wait a minute now. You just went right into your conversation. You got to give me a minute. Glory, that's beautiful.
Thank you. And so it was written really out of some pain. And even to this day, not really knowing that this song, where it kind of went, it was released, it's on iTunes and all of your digital media downloads. But I didn't really know the extent of the reach of this song. And I remember in 2019 in September, I was in New York at this musical. I had been invited to be a part of this ensemble to sing this tribute. And this guy was sitting next to me in the church. I didn't really know anybody. I had a few people in New York I knew. And I remember sitting next to this guy, this pastor of a church. And I introduced myself. Hey man, how you doing? I'm Jesse Stevenson. He said, oh, okay, it's good to see you. And, New Yorkers can kind of be hard. And after we got done singing, the pastor that I was sitting next to, he looked at me. He said, hey, man. He said, did you say your name was Jesse Stevenson? And I said, yes, sir. He said, like, breakthrough album, Jesse Stevenson? And I was like, okay. Yeah, that's me. He said, like, these wounds, Jesse Stevenson?
Glory.
And I said, yeah. And he jumped on me and gave me the biggest hug. And he said, man, I know you don't know me. He said, man, but your music, that song, These Wounds, took me through one of the roughest seasons of my entire life.
Yes.
He said, and I played that song every day. When I've been hurt, wounded, and ashamed, when I've been torn and scarred by my friends, when I don't understand the place that I'm in, all I know is that these wounds are strings of worship for Him. Somebody said my mic is low. All I know is that these wounds are strings of worship for Him. And I don't know who's listening to me tonight, watching the Ella show, but whatever you're going through, I can just share my testimony. I've been wondering why I've been going through these things, been betrayed, left all alone, with no one there to call on the phone. But that's when I realized, as I felt the pain so deep inside, that these wounds are strings of worship for Him. Hey, oh, that these wounds are strings of worship for Him. You might be going through depression and feeling by yourself, but when I've been hurt, wounded, and ashamed, when I've been torn and scarred by my friends, when I don't understand the place that I'm in, all I know is that these wounds are strings of worship for Him. All I know is that these wounds are strings of worship for Him.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. That is incredible. Listen, people that are watching the broadcast sometimes feel that they're alone in some of the things they're going through. I want you to share with my audience some of the things that you went through and how you navigated your way through them.
You know what? I'll tell you, I remember going through, beyond this particular point, uh, going through distrust, not feeling like I could trust people. I had my entire circle of friends totally change. But it was through that particular place where I started to ask God, Lord, uh, please reveal people who are supposed to be in my life, and please expose people who only want to be in my life as leverage to take advantage of me and then try to take credit for what you're getting ready to do. Now, I was mad that I prayed that prayer and somebody didn't warn me of the repercussions, because after that, I prayed that prayer, Ella, man, I've had people leave my life.
Oh,
I had people that prophesied to me out of one side of their mouth and then cursed me out of the other side of their mouth. I went through periods of rejection and loneliness, abandonment, and it just really took me to this place. And so, being able to find solace in worship really helped me navigate that period. I had a few friendships to come, I had some to go, and I just kept moving. And it was at one of the roughest seasons of my life after going through divorce. I met my wife, and we've been married 12 years. We've known each other for 14 years. And, I had time to spend with me to be able to process Jesse. I've been teaching on my church every Tuesday night a study called the State of the You Address, the State of the YOU, and how it's important for us to be able to deal with things and process things and let God heal us to the deepest of our emotions and our wounds and our pain. And so as a result, I had somebody that came into my life that valued my children, that valued me. We have an
wow.
amazing family together and helped push me to the greatest extent. And so my wife, who's watching tonight, is my biggest friend and my biggest fan.
Yes, she is. She's been commenting the entire show. I
Yeah,
love it.
that's my girl. And so
Yes.
she's always been a life coach and has helped me coach me through things, and even birth things that I know God put in my spirit in the incubator of prayer. And so for me, I went through these moments of abandonment and loneliness and rejection. And then I started a church in Virginia that after about 2 years went through a major split, and it rebounded before the Lord sent us to New York. Got to New York, and the Lord told us to start a church. And it's like all of these emotions and these floods of things that started affecting me that I didn't realize I was carrying. And I thought that because I was doing well, I had gotten over it, and realized I hadn't. And
Mm,
I remember one day we started our Sunday evening service at 6:20, and the office that in the church that we were leasing, it has a window right to the parking lot. We had to come in and set up every Sunday night, and at 6:20, nobody was in the church other than a few people that came to set up. My wife, my kids, the drummer, the intercessor and her husband, and then maybe two or three singers. That was it. And I remember being so afraid of failure because nobody showed up, and I found myself censoring people instead of trusting what God called me to do. And so
mm.
the Lord said to me, He said, from now on, you will no longer to be in this office at 6:20. You're going to go inside of the church with everyone else, and you're going to be at the start of church, and you're not going to censor the people. And I promise you, at 6:21, people started walking into the church left and right. And it was like, man, where are these people coming from? And so God said, you cannot be overwhelmed and overtaken with these points of distraction. And so the Lord let me preach to myself, but let my church feast off of my own deliverance.
Wow.
So the sermons, the first few months when we started our church, those were sermons that God preached to me. I was preaching to myself, and my church got the benefit. They got the benefit of it. They were able to feast at that table. And so as a result, man, I just realized more and more that, man, I belong to God. I am His, He is mine. And so I've just learned to be okay with that. I've had this encounter recently with this eagle, and I get excited because I didn't realize the eagle was as close to the house as it is. It's a nest. And every morning when I get up, I look for this eagle because when I drive out of the subdivision, it's usually on the tree right in front of where we leave. And so both eagles, a pair, they visit this tree. And one of the things that I realized one day when I first discovered that this eagle was there was all of the birds in the area were in an uproar. It was a lot of chatter. They were trying to get this eagle to leave. He was the only one perched at the top of this tree. And the entire time they were trying to come and peck at him, unbothered. He did not respond. He did not drop down to a lower branch to make the other birds beneath it feel good.
Preach, preach.
He was totally unbothered. They were pecking. I got pictures. They were pecking at him, and he was just plucking his feathers in a moment of rest, and at a moment of having bowel movements and clearing out his system, but yet unbothered. I got a
Mm.
picture where one bird went to fly and peck right on his head, like, get out of here, unbothered. And you know what? Every day, several times a day, him and his female wife, eagle, come and visit that tree. And the birds in the area are intimidated, but they're unbothered. They are
Wow.
unbothered. And so for me, I started to understand that not one of the eagles, the husband and the wife, they stay married for life. Not one of the eagles sunk down to the place of any of those other birds. They didn't shrink, they didn't diminish,
Come on now.
they weren't insecure. When
Yes.
he was done, they flew back to the nest where they had a clear view. They have a clear view of the entire surrounding, and they are unbothered. You know why? Because they are secure in the greatness to which God placed in them. And I started realizing I'm one of those eagles. They didn't come and jump down on the ground and walk with the other birds that was walking beneath it. They did. There was large lizards and iguanas and all kinds of stuff on the ground, and they were not bothered at all. I realized that all of the stuff that I went through helped to develop and helped to expose the eagle and the champion that's in me.
I love that. I'm reminded of a motivational message that I used to do about the birds, and it was talking about what type of bird are you? Because you have the doves, I think those are the ones that if you can see them, you're flying too low. And then the chickens, the only time they fly is when they're scared. So you have to develop the mindset to know which one you are. And it sounds like you did. You're an eagle.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm going to ask you something about something that I know is probably very touching, and it's your mom. You
Oh,
lost her.
yeah.
You lost a lot of family members. Your family was hit with COVID.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that a little bit.
So March 21st, I was in North Carolina on a ministry assignment, and my dad called me at 12 midnight, and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna let you know that Dot is gone." That's what we call my godmother, Mama Dot, my stepmother rather. She transitioned, had a stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and transitioned 3 months to the date, June 22nd. My mom transitioned from heart failure, heart failure. The week after we put my mother in the ground on June 3rd, my wife and I were in the ER fighting with COVID. Um, and we were held hostage in Orlando, Florida for 19 days to COVID and didn't know whether we were going to live or die. uh, Ella, I think the more scarier part for me to a certain degree was being in the hotel room and my wife being in physical pain.
Mm.
And I had her to sit on the edge of the bed because I was going to go and muster up some strength to go and try to make her some breakfast to eat. And I heard a thump on the floor. And when I ran around the corner, she was not sitting on the bed where I sat her. She was unconscious on the floor. And I ran over and I tapped her a few times. And I said to God, God, now you took my mama and you took my stepmama. I said, but you can't take my wife. I said, I just can't handle that. Not all like this. And I heard breath come into her body. And I scooped her up off of the floor and I sat in the bed. She didn't know whether she woke up alive or woke up dead. Um, and we were able to get back home by the beginning of August. My mother and father in law were both hospitalized with COVID. And by the time we got back home and quarantined 14 days in New York, September 1, we had to come to Florida thinking that my father in law was going to make his exit transition out of the hospital as my mother in law was on the way home. And by that Labor Day, he had transitioned. And
Ugh.
so that has been hard because even to this day, I don't really think that I have grieved my mother's transition because I've been too busy being strength for my family and also my wife's family, who it was a hard hit because he absolutely loved his family as my mother loved her family. And, it was hard. And my father in law did transition from COVID. He was a city transit worker and fell to COVID. And so that has been challenging. And I've been able to just maintain on the resilience of God. I remember one particular moment um, where I was really having an emotional moment, and somebody came to give me a hug, and I was getting ready to cry, and they hugged me real tight, and I told y'all I'm transparent. They hugged me real tight, and they said, "All right, now you the man of God, man apostrophe D, you're the man, you're the man of God." And all of my tears went back in my tear duct. I was like, this record just messed up my whole cry.
I know, right?
I know I'm the man of God, but I just want to be a son-in-law today. I just want to be a
Right.
son. I could have preached my mother's funeral. It took a lot for me to even get up and sing or have words. But I was able to do that. And so there were moments in humanity that even though I know we're called to what we're called to and we're anointed and we prophesy and we pray people through and we lay hands, man, I didn't want to be the man of God that day.
I
I
hear
just
you.
wanted to be a grieving son, you
Right.
know?
I hear
And
you.
so we kind of laughed and they said, well, you are the man of God. And I was like, but I don't need you to tell me that right now.
Exactly. I hear
Sometimes
you.
let me just have your embrace and lay in your arms and cry and get it out.
Right.
And some of you all are listening to me tonight. You just need a good cry. You don't need no advice. You don't need no counseling. Not at this particular point, not before your good cry. You just need somebody's open arms that's going to let you lay there without judgment, without condemnation, and let you cry, and then start to talk you through the process. And so for me, that was challenging. And so my wife, she often looks and she's, sometimes concerned because, she can kind of see it on me. I'm the baby of four. And she knows that I loved my mama, and my mama loved her baby. But that was hard for me to lose um, three parental figures in 1 year, one calendar year. Not to mention, I then turned around and lost, after the day after my father-in-law died, I lost the first member of my church in New York.
Oh,
So, it's like, okay, this is too much. Can I get a
yeah.
whole refund on the entire year?
Yeah, right. I know. Let me
For me,
do you ever find yourself getting angry at God though?
you know what? No. I sometimes have questions like, God, why'd you have to take them? I have a list of a few people that you probably could have took.
Now that's 100 right there. God might maybe God, if he would have answered you now, that would have been a totally different story. But
Oh yeah.
I understand though.
Yeah. And so, I don't find myself getting angry. I think one of the challenges, Ella, for me is I don't know if it's and I don't know if I've said this publicly before. Keisha, you might get me if I say it, but I'm on the Ella Johnson show, so can't nobody get me on the Ella Johnson show, including
That's
you.
right.
Um,
It's safe.
I don't think I've ever said this before, and maybe I have, but as a musician of 35 plus years, I have played for hundreds of funerals. And, it's kind of been a thing that I'm like, I know the Bible said that it's once appointed unto man to die, but it's like, okay, you know, it's the same process. The difference is I'm on the other side of the grave. You know,
Right.
it's my mama this time. It's my family. And
Wow.
so, I often wonder if I've grown numb, to death, because I've been around it and exposed to it, or if I just am really okay. And thankfully, my wife is I call her a wife coach. I'm going to make her a shirt this week called Wife Coach.
You do that. Absolutely.
And I like to sit and talk more with her about that. But it's like, okay, it's once upon a man to die, after that the judgment. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Now you
Um,
told me that you have some old school gospel in you. I know one of the songs that your mom's favorite song, "Going Up Yonder." I would love for you to just bring her into this broadcast by remembering her song. Give us a little bit of that, "Going Up Yonder."
okay. If you want to know where I am going, where I'm going, I'm going soon. If anybody asks you where I am going, where I'm going, I'm going soon. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you. I know you weren't prepared for that one. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you to sing that song, but I just think that it was fitting to have her be a part of the broadcast, and she means so much to you. Listen, we're, about out of time because we could just go on all night, but,
Oh,
you'll definitely have to come back and we'll have to pick up. But, people that are going through, that's what these shows are all about. I want to speak to the people that are watching this broadcast. If you are going through, you're either going through something or you just came out of it. And this is a time to look in the mirror and be real. Be real. Nobody's watching. Nobody's standing there with you. When you are going through something, you have to find that thing between you and God. It has nothing to do with what anybody else is saying. Doesn't matter what you see on Facebook. None of that. You have to connect with him because that's the only way through. That is the only way through. We talked about, you fake it till you make it. Well, listen, I want you to faith your way through, not fake your way through. Because let me tell you something, when you fake, you still have to deal with it. You might as well go ahead and deal with it. Don't worry about what people say. Don't worry about who's going to criticize you. And for God's sake, don't worry about losing. You see that Jesse here shared his story with us tonight, and he talked about his failures, but he stayed in the game. He didn't stop. He didn't go home. He didn't pick up his bag and just say, forget about singing, forget about any of that. He knows that God gave him a gift. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. And I am sure, Jesse, that everybody watching this broadcast has a pulse. Mm-hmm. So that means you too have a purpose. Now I want you to give some last words to my guests as we get out of here.
Hey, listen, I want to just say to you all that, and I'll just piggyback off of what Ella Johnson said. For those of you all that are going through and you seem, or it may seem like you're at the roughest part of your life, yes. Can I just tell you that the way you spell the word through is THORUGH. The word rough is right in the middle of through, which means if you are going through something right now and it seems like it's absolutely rough and unbearable and unfathomable, guess what? You're almost on the other side of it. You're getting ready to come out of it. And so I want you to be encouraged. Find somebody that's a safe place that you can talk to, that can encourage you. You don't always need people in your life that's going to tell you everything that you want to hear and agree with everything you got going on and try to validate your decisions, especially if they were bad ones. Listen, find you somebody that's honest enough to be able to be honest with you, because that's where iron sharpens iron. That word honest, HONEST, the root word there is hone. It's like a honing rod that a chef uses to sharpen a knife. All right. Listen, go and find somebody that you can let sharpen you. When you get to your dullest moments, when you get to your downest moments, when you get through your craziest moments and your craziest times, y'all, listen to me. Let me tell you, God's grace is sufficient for all of that. And even when you think that you don't have the strength to get through it, God then gives you his strength. And he tells you, my strength is made perfect or mature in your weakness. Do me a favor, love and live. Don't be bitter, be better.
All right. Well, listen, in a second, we're going to let you take us out with these wounds. But before we do that, I want you to tell everybody that's watching where they can go to find your music.
All right. So I have music on iTunes, all digital media outlets, anywhere that you can download music, please go and download it there. You can find some of my music on YouTube as well. I have some YouTube stuff there. If you all want to get in contact with me or booking or find me on social media, my website is jesselstevenson.com. My YouTube name is Jesse L. Stevenson. My Instagram is official Jesse L. Stevenson. Facebook is Jesse L. Stevenson. And reach out, find us, like us on. Once I get off of here, I'm going to Ella's page and I'm going to like her YouTube channel, and let's stay connected. I am developing a group of worshipers and a group of people that are in ministry called the Tribe of Judah, and got some really great things that's forthcoming. Ella, it's been crazy. I've written 3 children's books, and in a couple of days, I'm going to release 4 of them. One of them in 4 languages, and
Ooh,
it's called Wall
nice.
Dog. It's of Wall Dog and Shadow Cat. And so you'll be able to find that on Amazon and all of your download stores, Barnes and Noble, and everywhere. All right. So but yeah, that's me, man. I'm a humble guy that just loves God and love his people.
Well, listen, if you're just tuning in, we're definitely getting ready to get out of here. I want to thank everybody who has tuned in tonight from YouTube or Facebook. Thank you so much. I would love to go through here. I see that we have a lot of people that commented, and a lot of you tuned in for this You Just Don't Know episode. If you have a story that you would like to share on the Ella Johnson Show, please send an email to the Ella Johnson Show at gmail.com, because I'm getting a lot of different requests, because I just think that, what this show is all about is just empowering one another. And we have to do that by telling the truth and facing those issues instead of Facebooking them all the time. So we want to ask you a special favor, Jesse, to give us a little bit more of these wounds. And then we're going to get out of here, and I'll see you guys next time right here on the Ella Johnson Show tomorrow night.
When I've been hurt, wounded, and ashamed, when I've been torn and scarred by my friends, when I don't understand the place that I'm in, all I know is that these wounds are streams of worship for Him. All I know is that these wounds are streams of worship for Him. Y'all try it. When I've been hurt, wounded, and ashamed, when I've been torn and scarred by my friends, when I don't understand the place that I'm in, all I know is that these wounds are streams of worship for Him. All I know is that these wounds are streams of worship for Him. I lift my hands in total adoration to God.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jesse, for being a guest. I hope you'll come back. Best wishes to you and your family and your music career. I just have enjoyed you tonight. I am just full right now. I am full, but thank you so much. And thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow night right here on Facebook Live and YouTube Live on the Ella Johnson Show. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.